Do you ever compare yourself to others and think, wow, she's got a great job? Or, she weighs less than I do. Or, she's got a great house or a great luxury car. Or do your kids ever compare themselves to others and say, I'll never be as smart as they are? Or I'll never play sports or music as good as they do? Well, I'm Dr. Ellen Ettinger, and we all compare ourselves to others at some point in time. Sometimes those comparisons can help us, and sometimes they can disempower us and derail us. I'm going to talk about how, when they do that negative side and derail us, how we can flip it around. And I'm going to talk about how we can help our kids as well. So, comparisons and competition is really a natural thought. I'm going to talk about why. Again, I'm Dr. Ellen Ettinger, and I'm going to discuss why we compare and get involved in competition. I'm going to talk about some classifications of areas where we tend to do it. I'm going to talk about two possible outcomes of competition and comparisons. And I'm going to talk about what to do when you find yourself or the children in your life comparing, and how you can flip it around to help it work for you instead of against you. So let's dive right in. Why do we do it? Why do we compare and get into competition? Well, our brain is wired to help us understand how we fit in the world, who we are, and who else is in the world around us. And sometimes we think who's stronger, who's smarter, who's this, who's that. It's really part of the brain wiring. It's really a survival technique that we use sometimes to make sure we're safe in the world and to know who's around us. And so some comparison is normal, but when it becomes excessive or overbearing or stressful or even depressing, that is really too much. And we want to nip it in the bud and really, again, flip it around to work with us. So again, when those comparisons become excessive, they can make us feel powerless. That's when we tend to say, I'll never be as smart as so-and-so, or I'll never be as good at music or sports as someone. And those comparisons can cut our self-esteem, they can cut our self-confidence, or on the other hand, comparing ourselves, those comparisons can help us see role models who help us see what can be done, what can be achieved out there. And they can motivate us to say, well, she's got a great job. I think it's time for me to upgrade my job and to look for a better job as well. So again, there are two possible outcomes of comparisons. Again, they can really get in our way and make us feel disempowered and disenfranchised, disengaged, and that you just can't get there. You feel stuck. Or they can really motivate you and light that fire to get you moving along on your way. So when we keep focusing on what the other person is doing, often it makes us frustrated. And that's what brings us into the downgrade and into that excessive feeling of frustration. And again, that's when we keep focusing on the other person. But on the other side, when we focus on ourselves, that's when we think, wow, I have a role model out there. I have an example of what can be achieved. I want to do that. I think I'm going to figure out how I can do that. So again, one of the keys to healthy comparison is keeping the focus on you. Because when you keep the focus on the other person, you really can't control or understand their exact situation. What you can understand and what you can control is your situation. who you are, where you're at, and how you can achieve personal growth and achievement. You can control taking steps and making action plans to go from here to there. If you've been watching me before, you know I talk a lot about that, about knowing where you are here, knowing where you want to get, and coming up with a plan to do that. And competition is one of those areas that can spur you on to want to do that. One of the things that I like about this topic and find interesting, by the way, is some of the topics that I talk about in this channel. Some of those topics are more for parents and adults. Some of the topics are more for kids. But this topic of competition and comparison is for both of us, for adults and kids. So I'm going to help you today handle competition for you, for yourselves, and to help the kids in your life handle comparisons as well. So I want to talk about some examples of classifications where we tend to make comparisons. And one involves physical comparisons. So again, we may say she weighs less, or he's stronger than I am, or she's got a great body, she's got a great wardrobe, the way she wears her clothing. Again, physical examples. We also talk about and tend to make comparisons in work and financial status. She's got a great job, a lot of prestige. She's got a big house, a big fancy luxury car. We also tend to compare skills and talent, and that's a third classification. So we might say, oh, he's great at sports, or he's a great artist, or he plays the piano or the flute or the guitar or the drums. So fabulous. He's so great at these things. Or our kids sometimes say, he's smarter than I am. I'll never be that smart. And again, we don't want to fall into that trap. I'll be talking a lot today how to get out of that trap. So again, when we focus on the other person's strength without thinking about how we can move there, that's when it often gets excessive and it makes us feel like it's out of our control because all we're doing is focusing on what they're doing. But when we bring the focus to ourselves and relate the talent or the issue to ourselves, that's when we can spur ourselves on and say, you know what? I'm ready to move forward. This is stimulating. This is exciting. This is motivating to me. So again, just staring at what the other person has or does, just wanting to be like the other person, and sometimes it evokes jealousy or envy, that doesn't give us the steps to get there, to move there. We need to twist it and bring the focus to ourselves and motivate ourselves so that we can get involved in personal growth and take actual and create actual steps to move forward. That is something that I work with a lot with adults, sometimes families, and sometimes kids as well. Again, to figure out, how am I going to get from here to here? And sometimes it's easier to have somebody outside and objective help you create those steps so you don't feel stuck. So I also want to point out that when we are involved in comparison and competition, a lot of what we observe, we see on social media. And people tend to put their best on social media. So we often compare ourselves to people's best. They talk about a great job experience they've had or a great vacation they've had. And we compare our worst or our average day to people's best. People don't usually put their worst on social media. So they usually don't say, my house is a mess, I had a bad day at work, and I had an argument with my spouse or partner today. No, they put pictures of their great vacation. And if they're dressed up for a wedding, They put fabulous pictures of them looking awesome. And we compare them and think, well, this is the way I look every day. So we have to really have perspective on what we see, first of all. Second, we tend to compare to people's end point, their experienced point, even when we're at the beginning or midpoint of an experience. For example, and kids often do this, they'll know somebody or see somebody who plays the guitar or piano or drums or flute, and they'll start and they'll say, well, I can't play like them. I'll never play like them. I remember when my daughter was little, she wanted to learn to play the flute, and she took one lesson and she came home and she said, oh, I'm so bad at it. It sounds like I'm just squeaking most of the time. And I said to her, you know, you can ask any professional musician, and they'll probably tell you the first time they played, they sounded the same. So it's important to explain to kids because kids don't have a perspective. They think professional athletes just picked up the ball and were fabulous from get-go. They think musicians just picked up the guitar or drumsticks and were awesome from the beginning. They don't realize that everybody starts somewhere and builds up. And the other thing that I think is important to explain to kids and remember ourselves, that in sports, there's soccer, there's basketball, baseball, tennis, and others. In music, there's piano and guitar and flute and drums and others. So there's always going to be somebody better than us in something. And that shouldn't bring us down. It should really motivate us to choose what we're interested in and to grow in the areas that we want. But particularly for kids, it's important to give them perspective and for them to realize that even the experts started out somewhere. And I think that's important because kids compare themselves to other kids as well who may have had more experience, and they just want to be as good as everybody. Kids want to be in the spotlight. They want their own glow. And often siblings will feel that they have another sibling who's in the spotlight. So they may have an older brother or sister who's good at sports or art or music or something, and they just may be younger. And they may need an explanation to realize that they just haven't been doing this as long as their sibling has. And they can learn from their sibling. They can watch their brother or sister. In fact, maybe even their brother or sister can help them. And if there's that kind of issue happening, you might want to check into it. I worked with a family once, and when they checked into it, they found out that the older sibling was kind of taunting the younger sibling about how much better they were at a sport than the younger one. So it's important to get the cooperation and involvement of older siblings and friends to help younger kids. And that's really important. So I want to talk about 3 keys that are really essential. And the first is to keep comparison and competition with others in abeyance. Keep it limited. Don't waste time, energy, and motivation on just frustrating moments watching and observing someone else and what they can do. Remember, we often compare ourselves as well to people's best in comparison to our everyday or our starting point or our midpoint when they may have more experience than us. And that's particularly important for kids. And key number 2, remember to use the advantage of comparison. Don't get frustrated. Use it as an example of what's out there, of what can be accomplished, not to get you stuck, but to give you the motivation to build the action steps to move forward. Again, to move from here to here, like I talk about. And again, if you need some help creating those action steps, know that I am here for you. And third, remember to focus on your own skills and advantages, your own strengths. So somebody may be a better athlete, but you may be a better artist. So don't belittle yourself or allow your kids to belittle themselves as well. That we all have strengths, we all have areas that we want to work on, and that's part of life. And there are always areas where there'll be people who are better than us. And that's normal, that's healthy, and it helps us it helps motivate us to keep growing. So I'm going to give you an exercise to do with your kids. If they're feeling frustrated and if they're feeling less than, I like to call it the less than exercise. And that is, if you find your child feeling that way and you explain to them all of the issues that I've talked about, ask them, I want you to tell me, what are you good at? Tell me 3 things that you are good at. And all kids should be able to find 3 things, even if they say, I'm kind to my friends and my family. That's a great strength to have. Or they'll find some skills that they have that they may not have thought of because all they were doing was thinking of this one thing that they see their friend or their sibling can do that they haven't mastered yet. So we want to keep our children's confidence and self-esteem up and make them remember that they are good at things in life. And by the way, if you're feeling down at some point in time, I'd like to invite you to do this exercise as well. What are 3 things that you're good at? I know you can find 3 things that you're good at. In fact, if you're a parent who's been coming to my videos to learn empowerment strategies to help your family, one of the things that I know that you can put on your list is that you're a caring, loving, thoughtful parent and that you care about your kids and want to help them. And I know that you can put them on your list. So again, we want to help our kids, our families, and ourselves build strength, build self-confidence and self-esteem, and not let competition and comparisons get in the way. And again, if you only focus on the other person, you're getting in your own way. I like to compare it. If you're running a race and all you do is look back at the other person behind you, you lose sight of your own forward pathway. You need to watch yourself. It's not bad to know the competition, to compare, but the bottom line is you're in charge of you, and you can take steps for personal growth to move forward, to advance. Give yourself time and patience, but remember that you have control over yourself. And that's the important thing in the equation here. You are in charge of you. So again, I want to encourage you not just to listen to this, but to take action. That comparing and competition are role models. And at that point, I want you to think about developing some steps to help you move forward. Again, if you need help, if you'd like somebody objective to come in and help you create those steps, I'd be happy to help you. I do make a point to keep some slots open for new clients because I think that's the right thing to do. So I'd be happy to speak with you and give you some help. I remind you again that this is a full scope place for parents and parenting and all issues to help our kids, our families, our home, our work, and ourselves to become more empowered. I hope this topic was really helpful and useful to you. If it was, please put some comments and let me know. I always really value feedback. Please hit thumbs up, and third, subscribe so that you'll know when I come out with new videos. Again, I'll be out in a week with the next video on another topic. So until then, be empowered and let's talk again soon.